This is the diagram of the request fulfillment process. It's a complex process since it allows the management of various types of requests. The main subflows allow you to manage a request for information and to manage a request for a service chosen from the service catalog. This process has two opening points. The first one, executed by the user through the self-service portal, and the second one can be performed directly from the help desk in case it must register a request received by external channels, such as email or telephone. During the classification step, the help desk group determines the nature of the request. An information request may then be carried out by the help desk itself or be forwarded to another help desk, horizontal escalation, or, when requiring technical information, to the proper specialist group. If the request refers to a service of the catalog, it needs to be forwarded to the specialists through the relative part of the workflow. As the service request becomes fulfilled, the specialist may decide whether to close it directly or return it to the help desk for further evaluation. When the process involves the management of a request for service, after the classification step, some work orders will be generated. These can be thought of as the bricks, the elementary operations which will build up the process to the satisfaction of the request. After that, the work orders can be submitted for approval by either a technical supervisor, the manager of an organizational unit dealing with that kind of request, or the manager of the organizational unit the requester refers to. After the approval, the work orders will be executed and the request fulfilled. As you can see, many points of this process involve the sending of automatic notifications. In particular, the user receives an email when his request is registered in the system and when it gets concluded. Furthermore, automatic emails are sent every time the process changes performer group. Therefore, at all of the escalation points, horizontal or vertical. Let's now have a look at how requests for information can be performed by a user with access through the self-service portal. I sign in. As you can see, in the Home Portal page, there is a section allowing us to ask a question. In this way, we are able to start a process for the request for information. Now we click this button. At first, I am asked to consult the knowledge base in order to see if the answer I am looking for is already available. Otherwise, I click this button and send my request for information. At first, I have to select the main area of my request and type of request. For example, I want to ask how I can get a new monitor. Let's send the request now. At this point, the request has been registered in the application. If I move to the section including my requests, we can see that my process, the request fulfillment process, has been started on this date. The interface displays the inserted data, who the requester is, in this case it's me, and that the request has been sent from the portal. If we switch now to the CMDBuild interface, we can find the request that we want to manage among the processes in the request fulfillment grid. The help desk operator does not need to categorize the request. In this case, it concerns client hardware. The urgency is low because it is neither a problem nor a blocking question. The operation we are going to perform is the management of the request for information. Let's have a quick look at the other options. The first option is the management of a service request. You'll click this when you are asking for the activation of a service from a service catalog at your disposal. You can do an escalation to another help desk when the problem does not concern your area. This is useful when organizations have more than one help desk. You can also do an escalation to the specialists in case it is a technical request the help desk isn't able to answer. You can also close it directly or decide that the request should not be treated by the request fulfillment process since it involves performing some changes to the current system or it is actually a malfunction notification. In these cases, we can choose to close this process and start either a change management or an incident management process instead. The new processes will inherit from the opener all the data we already added until now. In our example, we are performing the management of a request for information. The process is then dealt with by the help desk. The columns about the current user will always be updated by the user in charge at the time. Clicking here, you can view the requester's data in order to contact him if you need further information related to his request. You can then view all request fulfillment processes with the same requester. Upload any document as a process attachment and view all emails sent from the application and regarding this process. As you can see, a first email has already been sent to the requester in order to tell him that his request was registered into the system. Meanwhile, another email was sent to the help desk in order to notify him that there is another request to manage in CMDBuild. Let's advance the process. At this point, the help desk replies to the request for information inserted by the user. The help desk can also use the knowledge base to pre-fill the answer. In this case, for example, the user is told to select the service from the service catalog. Here, further notes can be inserted which will be visible only to the help desk. In our example, we can write that the answer to the request was sent, and I can return to this step to register another answer. I can also return to the classification in case I realize it's actually a request that needs to be treated in a different way or that must be managed by a different group. Otherwise, I can close it. We proceed now through the process. The last activity allows users to insert some closure notes, but this operation isn't mandatory. We can notice two interesting things about this step. The first one is that for each process advancement, a register is filled in with information such as user, data, and time of execution of this step, activity name, and when provided, the closure notes. This may be very useful because it allows you to keep track of the process advancement, especially in case various users took part in the workflow. In this way, you can check what other people previously did. Another interesting thing is the timetable, which allows you to view the timing related to the process advancement. Close to the top border, we see the ticket number and the requester, some general data about the request, such as the name of the request, the name of the current step, how long the process has stayed in this closure step, and then the duration of each previous step. For instance, this process was dealt with only by the help desk. It never reached the specialists nor the work order step, since they both weren't required to carry out the process. The workflow needed about 4 minutes to execute the classification and about 2 minutes for the execution. These kind of reports are very important, particularly to verify if the specialists and the help desk are following the SLA which they are required to conform to. Let's now close these windows. Now that we are about to close the process, the system has prepared an email for the user. In order to send him the answer prepared by the help desk and to tell him that this request for information has been closed. I could even decide to edit the email and integrate it with other information that I want to send to the requester. And at this point, when I click Advance, the process ends. If we connect once more to the self-service portal and reload the page, we can see that the status of my request has changed. In particular, we notice that my request has been closed. From the section of email notifications, I can see and recover all emails connected with this request. And, in particular, this is the email that I received during the closure with the answer sent by the help desk. As a second sample of the subflow of the request fulfillment process, we can see the request for a service from the service catalog. Even in this case, the portal homepage presents a shortcut that allows me to navigate through the service catalog. The service catalog looks like this. You can browse the various categories, which can also be grouped into a nested structure. The interface shows, for each category, the list of the related services. Moreover, the portal allows us to choose the kind of request we are going to submit among the types displayed by the combo box. Let's suppose that we want to request the generation of an additional account. We can therefore choose the request and click here. At this point, I am asked to insert some more information about my request. For example, this person, Marlo Serena, needs an additional account. We are now allowed to proceed, and we click on Send. In this moment, the request has been registered in the system. If I visit the section My Requests, I can see that my request was registered and that is correctly located in the classification step. I can control the status of my recent requests even from the home page, so I can constantly monitor the advancement of my request. Let's switch again to CMDBuild, and, logging in as help desk users, we take charge of this service request. During the classification, we select the category and the subcategory of this request, its urgency, and we decide that in the following step, we are going to manage this request for service by ourselves. Let's advance the process, and at this point, we are asked to check the work orders related to this request. As you can see, the work orders grid is pre-filled. This is because the process reads the work orders from a specialized table in order to build the interface. Basically, when an organization is dealing with the system configuration, it will need to introduce the services with the relative requests and all of the work orders needed for its completion. In this way, CMDBuild will be able to manage a user program schedule. In this case, in order to accelerate the execution, we don't want to spend too much time for this example. We'll leave here just one work order. Just a note, in case of multiple work orders, the process will start the parallel execution of all of them. But considering even their dependency relations. Let's now close this panel and add some assignment notes and step forward to the next step. As you can see here, I cannot edit the process anymore because it is waiting for the technical approval by the change manager. Going back for a moment to the initial chart, my flow is at the moment at this point here. So, at this point, the change manager has to take charge of this request. Let's suppose that the change manager, after having received a notification email, logs into CMDBuild in order to examine the request and eventually approve it. Now you can see that the change manager, the activity is in the edit mode. The change manager is able to view the work orders created by the help desk, consult the register, in order to understand what has been done during the previous steps and view the requester's data. Using this information, he or she decides to approve or reject the request. In this case, it's okay. We approve it and advance the process to the next step. At this point, the change manager has concluded his task. Therefore, he cannot edit this process anymore, because it is back under the responsibility of the help desk group, which required the approval. So, we'll log out and act again as a software help desk operator. Please note that if the approval involved a non-technical operator, it would have been carried out through the portal My Approval section. Going back to the request fulfillment section as a help desk operator, we are now able to interact again with the process. In particular, through the tab you see here below, I can view and edit the data related to the first, and in this case only, work order connected to this request. The work order tells me that I have to create a new email account. After having completed this task, I am required to report the operations I performed. Let's say that it took half an hour to create this account. I can also insert some execution notes. In this case, I don't want to spend too much time on such details, and decide how to go on. So I could either suspend the process when I need to wait for an action by someone else, for instance, a customer's approval, or require repeating the execution step, or close the process. At this point, we are at the closure step of the work order. Okay, what we have to do is completed, and we can see that the system sent emails to the help desk and to the change manager during the previous steps in order to notify the route taken by the process, and we can advance the process. Now, we can advance to the next step. During the closure phase, I can insert some notes. Otherwise, the process is closed. Let's go into the portal and refresh the page. We can see and check the advancement status of the request. As you can see, even this request is closed. In the section of the notifications via email, if we sort them by subject, we can see that as regards to this request, the user has received an email regarding the closure of the process.